And the green light goes on, and free practice one is underway here for the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship here in Jakarta. And this looks to be a pretty interesting session as well, as we're going to head out there onto the track. 30 minutes in total. It's a double-header weekend as well. And we're right around the Beach City Arena as well, and the wonderful atmosphere here. But the fans aren't here just yet. They'll all be here ready for the action tomorrow. But practice one is green. Now, everyone heading out there onto the circuit as well, which is fantastic news. 40 laps ahead of us tomorrow as well. And we've got to start by talking about the inevitable with Formula E. It's been in the news as well. Ben Edwards now commentating on the remainder of this season as well, which is absolutely fantastic news as well. But everything that happened with Jack Nicholls and the investigation as well, and Jack Nicholls no longer being part of the Formula E team, it is the correct decision. It is the best decision for him not to be in the paddock. I commend Formula E for doing the investigation privately and only coming out after everything is the investigation is concluded. I personally wish that everybody in this situation is okay, and hopefully it has now been fully resolved. And hopefully the word justice has been thrown around. Hopefully everyone is happy with what has happened as well. And I hope the person involved as well is doing okay. We'll move into this new weekend as we get a full course yellow test. Ben Edwards up in the commentary box with Karun Chatnock as well. Right, today though we've got Saunders CB alongside Oliver Rowland. Sorry, who is it? Oliver Askew alongside with as well Nelson Piquet Jr. up in the comms box. So there's all action going on, but we're under the full course yellow at the moment. So let's go over and listen to Saunders in the box.
And then over the lap, I just couldn't do it. I mean, or I missed the braking zone, or I wouldn't accelerate. I mean, I need to be quiet and drive, or I need to be sitting in the chair and commentating, talking about. I cannot do both at the same time.
You're a racing driver. Once that visor drops, man, there's nothing else matters but going quickly. And we told you we're going to have you on the clock before you went out.
One thing is saying, hey, pit that box, okay, and you run to, or you tell your engineer how much energy you have, or he's telling you, okay, try to defend because next lap this is going to happen. But to talk the whole lap about the corner, how wide, how much grip, and the power, I mean, it was just too much. I mean, I just prefer just driving. We're sitting in the air conditioning over here where we are and watching them drive out there.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because, you know, Formula E is often referred to like driving is like playing chess. There's so much to think about whilst you're trying to hit every apex, nail every braking zone, everything like that. Did you find commentating over a lap harder than that?
Yeah, but one thing, drivers, naturally, we know what we do. We're driving, and we can drive and think, concentrate, think about what's happening. Imagine how much energy the car in front of you is consuming more. He's braking earlier, using more region. All of these things go through our head while we're driving. We're not speaking. One thing is trying to drive on the edge and trying to speak to, you know, to the fans, to the TV, trying to explain what's going on. It's just something. It's an exercise which I'm not used to it, and just much harder than purely driving, concentrated, looking at your braking points and just trying to extract the most out of the car. That's one thing. But doing all of that while you're speaking and explaining what's going on is just a whole different ballgame, which I'm not used to. Obviously, yourself probably would do a much better job, because for you, talking is normal. It's much easier, you know. And I'm already much more of a quiet guy. Last season, I've been, you know, being with you guys over here. It's been a bit of a learning process, just learning how to, trying to translate a little bit of what's going through their minds to the, you know, to all the public that is watching this race. So it's just, for me, it's all new, and putting myself on a new track with a Gen 3 car, which is very fast. It was just very hard, I would say.
Fascinating stuff. Well, we've got 25.5 minutes left of this session, this half-an-hour session, and there's a couple of things we should probably talk about. Let's have a look at
next lap.
There you go, then.
And Sam Bird's gone on a run-off area as well, coming through turn number 2. So he's had a couple of moments already in the double back half of this sector. Oh, and there's an advert, which is always fun. Some things we forget as well about it. So apologies for that to come up as well. Just making sure that we are up to date with our timing screens. We are. But that's the way, unfortunately, it goes sometimes, that we have to just sort of accept and wait for the ads to come through on broadcasts. Vern, though, 1:12.011 the fastest. Dennis second. Van Dorn third. Hughes fourth. Rast fifth. Verline, Evans, Tickton, Fenestraz, Gunther top 10. Nato, Boemi, Bird, Seta Camera, Da Costa, Cassidy, Beckman in, of course. Then we get Merry and Mortara. David Beckman, of course, in. Roberto Merry in. Two newcomers into the championship this weekend. I'm looking forward to seeing how they go as Cassidy comes across the line, completes his time. Beckman is a Friday driver, and across it now we see Cassidy 1.5 seconds off the pace, 17th. Boemi, though, up into third place, so now fourth, 4/10 off. Da Costa goes 14th, and Gunther's back in the pit lane already. Back over to Saunders and Nelson Pickford.
Energy at the same time. So, yeah, there's a system that that these engineers and drivers go through. Here's a radio from someone.
One more energy save. Be proactive on duty. One more energy save.
So this is doing exactly what you're talking about, right? They're now connecting that energy they did in the sim, the software and the strategy, to the real life.
Yeah, and this is the time to go through energy saving laps, or we call them race mode laps, when the track is green like this. So when it starts to get better, then yes, you can start focusing on qualifying. But right now is when these drivers are trying to make sure their lifting points and regen points around the track are in the ballpark. So they'll be tweaked slightly throughout the weekend as the track continues to get better. But yeah, that's a lot of how the simulator is important in Formula 8.
Another very important point that they try to do as well, the rightwards correlations, is basically line up the results you have in practice to what you have from the simulator, because sometimes the track design or the CAD map that the teams receive from the FIA are not exactly how the real track is. So for example, let's say in one of the corners the radius is much different, or there's much more grip than was in the sim. That's also to make the sim much better for next time they drive. So they try to get as much information from grip, from the curbs, radiuses, all the information to try to make the sim as close as possible to the real thing. The closer the track is on the sim, the more accurate the results are going to be. And a lot of these teams, they have drivers right now in the simulator back in the factories. After free practice, they'll get the results, they'll tweak a little bit the track back in the factory, and they'll be testing a couple of things, like that the teams have a few extra bonuses or information to try to be a step ahead of all the competition.
And just to really reiterate this for the audience at home, at the Neil McLaren sim, at their big technology centre, there were 1,600 data points for the simulator, just for the car alone. That's 1,600 different things you can tell the computer to change in order to create a more realistic simulation of a track, which is just fascinating. So let's have a look at where we are with just almost 10 minutes gone in this session. Pascal Wehrlein topping the timings, but at this point in free practice, it's not all about that, is it? Let's have a look at this replay. That's one of the Mahindras. I imagine that's probably Roberto getting used to driving.
Yeah, Roberto Merry with a huge front lock-up in towards turn number 1, going straight on as well. Just about keeping it down on the brakes, not running into the barrier, but Roberto Merry in as well, replacing Oliver Rowland at Mahindra. Rowland and that man there, the CEO, falling out as well over comments Rowland made in the media. We've now got Roberto Merry in control of the car, which seems to be the more preferred route. Wehrlein, though, 111.180. Dennis, Vern, Mortara, Hughes, top 5. Muller jumps up to third. The top 3 separated now by 8. Oh, never mind. Gunther goes across and takes a bigger lunge out of it as well. Let's hear from Roberto.
So sector 3 is your strongest at the moment. Sector 2 is where we need to find the most time. So think about your exit through 5.
Merry on the top there as well, pushing through and finding some time. Gunther, Wehrlein, Dennis, Muller, Vern, Mortara, Hughes, Van Dorn, Da Costa, Fenestraz, the top 10 at the moment here in the first practice session for the Jakarta E-Prix. A double header round. This is round 10. on Saturday. Sunday will be round 11. And it's a double-header. Not many races left, of course, 7 in total. A double here in Jakarta, off to then round 12, Portimao, then 13 and 14 in Rome, 15, 16 in London. Round out the Formula E Season 9 World Championship as they fly through. Really looking forward to Ben Edwards tomorrow on the commentary as well. We'll be hearing from him in the qualifying. We'll be turning him up, and even in the practice 2 commentary, we believe, as well. When that's coming up directly after this. We're following on the same show. FP1 and FP2 are combined here today on YouTube. FP3 is live tomorrow as well. Oh, Frying stopping the racing line there as well. As he comes out the last corner, punches it hard. That was Boemi having a bit of a stop moment as he comes across the line. Yellow flag is out at sector 18. Track is now clear. Verne and Boemi, the only 2 in the pit lane. Mortara makes it a Maserati 1-2. 2/10 off the pace of Gunther, though, as well, so there's still time to be found there. But I'm happy with the results we're seeing here. I'm happy with the acceleration and the anticipation of the racing action. Gunther, though, is fast. First sector is purple. Second sector is screaming around now as well, keeping the brake ducts alive. Fingers crossed it's going to be on top. Second sector time is up by 0.190 as Beckman goes 13th fastest as well. Gunther keeps on the power, keeps on the accelerator. And hopefully we're not going to see too much of a difference between the setups here, like we've seen in the past. James Rossiter, the Maserati MSG racing team principal, watching on. Hello, James, former racing driver. Watching on as Gunther exits the last corner. Maserati looking super strong here as well as they come across the line. Gunther improves. So now, again, more on the top spots as well.
We've seen a very different style of Formula E racing where drivers have to, or have been saving a lot of energy in the beginning of the race to then go flat out at the end. So I think we're going to see a similar style race both on Saturday and Sunday this weekend. And this is a track that's fairly difficult to overtake. So once that energy, that target, becomes close to flat out, late, approaching the final quarter of the race, those first couple of positions may be unchanged. Like we saw in Monaco, for example, the podium was basically decided with 5 or 6 laps to go. So see Pascal Wehrlein changing tires here.
So interesting point here. So you might have seen, if you're watching the FE show before, I had a chat with Kelvin van der Linde about some of the challenges of the heat in these conditions, and tyres was a big factor, and he was explaining to me about the different types of shoulder on the tyre and how in the heat it makes the ones that are kind of going to be used, I guess, more in this circuit, very difficult to manage.
Big front locking at the end of turn 2, for turn 3, and front slip control active turn 7.
That's Nick Cassidy there talking, giving some feedback down the radio to his new engineer. Now, just on the tyre situation, I mean, that might be relevant for what Nick Cassidy just said there. Why does the heat impact the tyre? Is it just about getting it up to temperature and how long it stays in that window, or is there another element to it?
Well, it depends if you're talking about qualifying or the race. In qualifying, I would say that it helps them because they can go out push right away. They don't have to worry about any prep laps to then put their time in qualifying. So the tires should be in a decent window right away as they go onto the start-finish line for the first time in quali. So that said, they're only going to last about a lap. And these cars have so much power and so little grip that the traction and slip of the rear axle generates a lot of heat very quickly. And then there's a snowball effect to that as well. These are radial tires, so tires that can perform both in the dry and the wet. You can see from JQ's there, the grooves in the tires. And so as soon as one of those blocks on the tire start to overheat, it then snowballs through the rest of the tire, if that makes sense. So these are a complete handful to drive because they have a lot of torque, a ton of acceleration, and very low grip. You know, that's great for us watching on TV, but very difficult for the drivers in the cockpit and the teams trying to manage the stability control systems, the braking systems, traction systems, in this very complex vehicle.
Yeah, and there's the information I thought was coming as well, with a advert that shouldn't really be on, but then again, for some reason, they're just adding in for ultimate annoyance as well, with 14:30 left on the board. Let's go back up to the commentary team.
Track surface temperatures, so yeah, there's a lot going on here.
Excellent. There's Ian James there, team principal of Neo McLaren Racing, did the press conference earlier. Seemed confident, although he said that he didn't have any control over preparation for his drivers because they know very much what to do. Here's a replay with Nissan's Sasha Fenestraz.
Oh my word!
Just showing what you said there.
Fenestraz nearly getting run up the back as well with some contact.
Being dirty, being dusty as well. We're gonna see a clear evolvement of this track until qualifying. It's gonna get cleaner and cleaner. We're gonna see the lines, the racing lines getting darker, getting more grippier, putting down a bit of rubber. So the track is gonna be evolving up to the race.
Yeah, that's something we did at Avalanche Andretti last year when we did our simulation prep. We could actually change the track condition in the simulator, and so when we did our race weekend preparation, when we simulated the practice sessions, the qualifying, getting our lap time in the exact right part of the short qualifying sessions, we were able to then follow the track progression in the simulator as well. Which I think is very crucial for these drivers, with how small the margins are in position. Every 10th, 100th, thousandth of a second helps. And, when you can have that extra bit of confidence, like this man Jake Dennis on screen with a couple of purple sectors has himself, it's very crucial.
Looks like he's doing a full power lap there. Jake Dennis, now, this weekend is massive for him because this season so far, in team principal Roger Griffiths of his team there, your old boss, and interesting that...
An all-around great guy.
An all-around great guy, that's the new catchphrase of the commentary booth. Jake Dennis has got a lot to do this weekend because he has returned to form, but this season it's kind of been all or nothing. It's been a podium or no points, and you can't do that in Formula E. It's about consistency.
It is, and Mr. Consistent, Nick Cassidy, on top of the points championship at the moment. Historically, though, Jake has always been strong in the last half of the season. So, he was a rookie 2 years ago, but for the last 2 years, he's always turned it on in the last bit. So, I don't know what it is if he decides to wake up and show up to work, and as the season goes on. But I think we can expect him to have a strong run at this championship this year.
Well, just to sprinkle a little bit more of excitement onto this, whatever we're waiting. London, Jake Dennis has won twice, and that's where we're ending this season. So could we see this spectacular finish in London for the season finale doubleheader? We'll see. We're looking at now riding with David Beckman, who is standing in for Andre Lotterer. Interestingly, talking to him earlier, one advantage he has over, or let's say the complete comparison with Roberto in Mahindra, is that the rookie session that David did for Andretti, only in Berlin a couple of weeks ago, he was actually looking at energy when no other rookies were doing that. Obviously, if there's a privacy or confidentiality issue there, if you go to another team, you could share the secrets, but he had that time because they knew that he was going to be driving this weekend. So it's given him a bit of an advantage that a lot of other rookies coming in for a one race or two race don't have. How much do you think that will make a difference? Or is the sheer learning curve of driving these cars going to be enough to challenge him?
He has been a driver over the past few months, and even last year as well. When I was racing for Avalanche Andretti, he was our reserve driver.
Sure.
Now a Porsche Works reserve driver, but he has a lot of simulator experience, so he knows the systems of the car. He's worked with these exact engineers, as we see in our picture now. And the Porsche Works car that he drove at the rookie test is basically the same as the Avalanche Andretti car. So they partner together. They have the same powertrain, the same system. So look, he's a racing driver. He has experience in other categories. When it's time to shut the visor, as we said earlier, it's time to go. And you know, energy saving is not the most enjoyable thing. Sometimes we want to go out there and let it eat. So I think that's what will come naturally to him.
Potentially that style of racing. How did you say it?
Go out there and let it eat.
Let it eat. Okay, I've heard that before. Maybe we'll see more of that this weekend because, you know, talking to a few different drivers in the paddock, the consensus is that we're potentially not going to have the same sort of slipstream racing and not wanting to lead that we've had in previous races because there are so many sections of this track where you can save without consequence, if that makes sense, without the risk of being overtaken. You can use the energy you saved to defend. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true, I would say.
Good. I'm glad.
That's where the veterans really set themselves apart, you know, by what we call freestyling in the car during the race and not sometimes going against the energy saving system in the car, the tones, the regen tone and the coast tone in the car, which will get you to the end of the race. But in a racing situation, when you're around other cars, sometimes you need to spend more energy in one side of the track to go on the offensive, and then, you know, save energy on the other side where you can when there's no passing opportunities. So yeah, definitely some traffic there as we.
Yeah, with Verline
10 minutes to go.
As we come into the final 8.5 minutes, let's have a look at timings because it's only a free practice one session. There are different programs going on, but if we're just looking at pace using the full power modes, Pascal Wehrlein and Jake Dennis are exactly where they need to stay for the remainder of the weekend. But it's not as easy as that because their qualifying duels are unforgiving and the race even more so.
No, and like Nelson said, until the very last lap of qualifying, the track's just going to continue to get better. So, yeah, you can look good now, and you know it's all happy within the garage. But you make a mistake on the last lap of quali, then it's not looking so good. So, you know, we see the top 10 covered by just over 3/10, but it's not going to look like it.
Let's have a little replay here of this Sergio City camera moment. Yeah, sideways. That looks quite hairy.
Quick.
It looks quick, but he's holding on to life. He's letting it eat. Sergio City camera, a driver that, you know, the Neo 323 team have had a handful of decent performances on one lap pace from, you know, qualifying has been good. They've been up there. But then, the races have been struggling. And if you look on the left-hand side of the screen now, you see this new telemetry graphic. It's currently on DS Penske driver Jean-Eric Verne. When you see the blue, that's the throttle, and the green going to the rear of the car is the regen. That's the recuperation of energy back into the battery. Now, one thing you'll notice by looking at that graphic, there's no braking. This is all recouping energy every time they lift off the accelerator, which is a huge part of Formula E, even more so this season. Nelson, now you've driven the Gen 3 car, the whole braking system was different. Talk to us how that felt.
Yeah, I mean, what I can tell you physically, when you get into the corners, and obviously you're still holding the brakes while you're turning into the apex of the corner, the steering wheel is so heavy because you have the front region working, recovering the energy. And I was speaking earlier to friends.
Quick look at that. We'll come back to you in a second, Nelson. That's a bit of a spin and running off from the Nissan of, was that Sasha Fenestraz?
I think that was Norman.
It was Norman Nato. And now we're on board with DaCosta. Sorry, Nelson, continue.
Yeah, and I was speaking to Robin Friends, and he was saying that it's after his accident and after he broke his hand, it's been so hard for him, especially when you get into the corners, because you have to muscle the car so much, because you have the front recovering a lot of energy at the same time. And the car, it's just such a complex system, but at the same time, physically, it's very hard because you have the front.
And another advert ruining us fun here up here in the commentary box, as well as we were hearing from the information of the drivers as well. But 5 minutes to go of the session. Well, I'll be back with 2 minutes to go. We're just hearing some information then from the drivers. Hopefully as well we'll get them sorted soon as they come into it as well. Let's go back up to the box.
The two axles. So it is a much more complex car. I mean, you see all these drivers doing a couple of mistakes, locking up sometimes, this and that, but it's just, when you put everything together, radial tires, heavy car, a lot of power, dirty tracks, I mean, all of this complex system, you know, it is very, very hard. I mean, sometimes we see other series and we look at them driving on TV, and it just seems like they're driving in the train rails. Nobody does mistakes and nothing happens. It's very different driving a Formula E car. You get all of these other drivers in different series, put them over here, they're going to do the same amount of mistakes or even more mistakes. I mean, normal mistakes, human mistakes in the session, because you're driving in such difficult conditions compared to two different series.
Okay, you're in sector 3. Turn out.
It looks like someone might have hit the wall entry into turn 7 there. There's some of the banners being scruffed off the entry wall.
Someone pushing the limits there. So,
Yeah.
so far, just looking at the running, interestingly, we do have, I mean, looking at the timings with Max Günther at the top of the timings there with a 109.2, both Günther and Mortara are actually up on last year's fastest race lap time, which you would expect given the extra power and everything with the Gen 3 car. But, you know, we're looking about half a second quicker, which is decent so far in the free practice 1 with the very dusty conditions the first running.
Yeah, that is, and we started the season, you know, in that same window of last year's car performance. But now, with time and experience with these engineers and drivers alongside this new Gen 3 car, it's gotten a lot better. They're starting to get the full potential out of this thing, and we see that in the characteristic of the car going around the track. From this visual, we see that these drivers are really getting the most out of them. They're much more confident with the car, you know, stepping out, being sideways, and you know, they're really hustling it around the track. As Nelson was speaking to, these guys are definitely earning their money now.
So there we saw one of the Neo 323 drivers, I think behind Dan Tixim, who's on screen now, going through the attack mode loops. Interestingly, this weekend the attack mode is an 8-minute use over each race. So yeah, that's longer than we've had, I think, so far this season. How might that impact things? Because, you know, running at higher power is going to mean more, I guess, put more pressure on the battery.
Well, it's probably the hottest weekend we're going to face the whole season. So, I mean, it's going to be tough on the drivers, on the tires, on the battery, on everything. So, it is going to be interesting to see how the teams are going to adapt and how they're going to be, you know, how they're going to deal with this. Because I think Formula E, they're just trying to, once in a while, throw a little bit of spice into these races, just make things a bit different, you know, especially like doing Saturday and Sunday, doing 2 different length of races, just to make it a little bit different and make it a bit harder for the drivers and for the teams. So it is going to be, you know, temperature-wise, it's going to be very tough in all aspects for the car, for the driver. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen.
It was Jake Dennis there getting a little bit sideways into that last corner, but we like to see that. It's controlled, looks good.
Yeah, I was speaking to Jake just before this session, you know, asking him what he thought about his chances this weekend, and he said, yeah, we're always strong in the race, but we seem to struggle in qualifying. And I asked why, and he said he wasn't happy with his traction. And as we see there from that replay, you know, the car dancing around a lot.
With 90 seconds left then of this session. Evans?
And obviously, these systems
all over the place.
These things all over the place, so Evans isn't happy with the way the car is. Yep, David Beckman in for Andre Lotterer, who's got a WEC clash because this weekend it is the test set up as well for the Le Mans 24-hour as they slide through. And yeah, Beckman losing a little bit of time at the rear. Just giving a kiss, a little bit of a slide. Gunther, Van Dorn, Mortara, Dennis, Verline, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Burt, Evans, Vern, Tichter, Muller, top 10. Setting Cameron, Fenestraz, Rast, Cassidy, DaCosta, NATO. Oh, look at that. Beckman up into 15th position as well. He's 8/10 off the pace, but Beckman absolutely flying at the moment as they come through. Let's hear from Beckman now.
just means that
Okay, we can keep
their
pushing and do
powertrain.
one more lap, go mod 1, energy save, mod 1, energy save, and X3 1 when you can.
Mode 1 can push. Mode 1 can push. So he's going for it, and I don't blame him one bit. This is Verline, rear sliding. Fast sector 1. Okay, sector 2. As they keep on to attack. Attack, push and find as Fenestrats goes 11th. Verline, 4th. Checker flag is out. Mortara, first. 109.137 for Edo. Gunther goes second. Verline third. Now Van Dorn third. Verline fourth. Cross the line. Everyone else changing with the red light on at the end of the straight. What a fantastic championship round this is going to be in the ABB FIA Formula E campaign here. Gunther top. 108.946. Mortara second. Van Dorn's on a lap. He's coming to the last 2 corners in the final sector. Can he push anything through attack mode area? He's personal best. He's not off just yet. Van Dorn might find something of use. Sete Camera to 11th. Evans to 4th. Van Dorn takes the flag. Stays 3rd. Tickton, Boemi, Merry. The time still left. Boemi 10th. Tickton and Merry. Merry across the line. Stays 21st. Tickton. Does he stay 11th? Yes, he does. So the first session is over, and this is how they finish with Gunther ahead of Mortara. Then it's Van Dorn, Evans, Verline top 5, Dennis, Bird, DaCosta, Vern, Boemi the top 10, Ticktum, Sete Camera, Muller, Fenestrats, Rast, Hughes, Cassidy, Beckman, Nato, Degrassi, Merry and Frines. And you join us live now up here in the commentary box, all set to go for free practice number 2 for the Formula E Jakarta E-Prix. And this wonderful circuit in Indonesia is a fan favourite, and hopefully it's going to be a bit more of a favourite coming up. Hello everybody, welcome to live coverage of the second practice session, and believe me, we've shown you what happened in the first session in its entirety. Now free practice 2 is live, a double bill for you as well. Sorry we couldn't bring you free practice 1 live. That was because at the same time we were doing the Formula 3 practice session, and we had no way to actually stream it at the same time. So practice 1 in a delayed format, but in its entirety, and here we are now, all set to go. So I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully you are too. It's looking like it's going to be a fantastic weekend of action as well. Ed Hunter's not with us this weekend, of course, in the 2 sessions, so it's going to be Nick Homewood in the commentary box alongside me for the race later on today. Big thumbs up for that. Looking forward to all of the action. Fingers crossed it's going to be a nice easy run as well, and a nice smooth commentary. Shouldn't have too many issues. Looking forward as well. So it's all looking good. We're just waiting actually because the Formula E live stream should have started by now, but all we're getting at the moment is a waiting for confirmation. Which is always fun, but so this is what we're just waiting for at the moment actually. Now it says live now as well with 200 people watching, and it's now on. Of course it is. When we want it to be, it never works, and then when it wants to be, it suddenly turns on as well. Good morning for everyone as well. If you're watching along with us on YouTube and syncing up our stream, as I know many people who watch do, don't forget to use the ×2 option on the speed. It syncs it up back to TV pictures as well. 30 minutes ahead of us then for the second practice session. I'm going to be remaining in this green shirt because, let's be honest, these are the clothes I wore yesterday. Jeans are fine, but the shirt will be changing for the race when I actually get to go in the bath. We were up at 1 a.m, into the commentary box at 1:20, started the show at 1:22, and now 5 to the hour ready on here to go racing. So, fingers crossed, this is going to be a calm session. I do understand it's Ben Edwards in the commentary box. I'm hoping it's Ben Edwards, to which point we are going to be, of course, listening to him. I mean, it's Ben Edwards. You don't turn off Ben Edwards. You listen to Ben Edwards when he starts talking. So we'll hear from him. And then Yeah, I'll do the commentary and pass it over to them for some discussions as well. Back up here in the box anytime it gets interesting. I must just say a massive thank you. I know he's probably watching, or hopefully he's gone to bed at this point because it's nearly 2 a.m. for goodness sake. Luke, hello if you're watching. Been an absolute diamond and has printed out my commentary notes for me as well. I've got them out on my desk and the track map for Formula E up in the commentary area as well. So thank you very much for that. Believe me, you have saved our bacon coming into this one. So rounds 10 and 11 here in Jakarta as well. It's a 2.370 kilometre circuit. Total as well. The first sector is 740 metres. Sector 2 is 1,490 metres. So it's quite a long connection, as I think my internet is just having a little bit of a dip in and out of broadcasting, thanks to the fact that it's 1 a.m. and we're with Virgin Media, which is always a nerve-wracking thing to see if your network goes down, but we have backups in place as we prepare. I'm slightly worried though that we are getting to the time of the session and we're not actually seeing anything from Formula E in terms of action. I'm just double checking via the information site when we are actually supposed to start up with them, because it should have happened by now. And I'm very surprised it hasn't, unless it's because at 2 p.m, 2 a.m. our time, the green light's going to go on and the session's going to get underway. So it should be now. We're not hearing anything. So unless the session starts at 1/2 the hour, considering that's when we're supposed to go off air, I'm slightly more alarmed that I could have had an extra 15 minutes in bed, which is always, the fun information. Let's take a look at the timetable then. Practice 2 gets underway at, guess what, 10 past the hour. Yeah. So, do you know what that means? Yeah, we could have had 10 whole minutes to fill. Well done. That's always a nice feature to come into, as I don't want to say it, but it is a little bit like, oh my goodness me, we have 10 minutes to fill up here in the commentary box as well. It's fine at this time of the morning. Good morning, everyone. If you're waking up in Central Europe, well done for getting up and staying up with us. You really are die-hard fans as well. Just trying to find out now the Formula E zone to see one of their interviews, if they've got anyone. I don't think we've got anyone in Jakarta this weekend. I've been double-checking with us. Formula E zone, here we go. We do actually. We've got some interviews. Oh, brilliant. They've actually got people on site. Okay, let's take a listen then to some interviews and start off with Nick Cassidy and his pre-race interview from all of the action. Let's see what Nick Cassidy has to say. Looking strong coming into today. Here he is.
Yeah, for sure it gives me confidence. Honestly, even the first races weren't bad. Had a 9th and a 6th, and we were strong. I remember finishing those 2 races with lots of energy, so I was like, okay, it's a good place to start the season. But yeah, the last 6 races have been incredible, so let's see what happens now. I hope so. I mean, it's good learning. It's still new for us with this car, so we're still learning about the setup and stuff, and I'm sure everyone is. So everyone's looking to get better and better. So we've got to keep moving forward as well.
And also, do you feel optimistic about extending the championship?
Not sure. Anything can happen. So if we extend, great. If we don't, that's life. It is what it is.
Always nice to hear from them as well, from Formula E Zone. Although, Ed, just a little thing, I know you're editing the videos, or maybe not, that volume needs to go down. Volume needs down on that one as well. Someone who's making his debut in Formula E as well is David Beckman. He is replacing, coming into this one as well, he's replacing Andre Lotterer, who's got a wet clash with the Formula he's got a wet clash with the Le Mans testing, and this is what David Beckman had to say. it's going to be the factor as well, as I do. I implore you to subscribe to the Formula E Zone as well. I have put the link in the YouTube chat as well as it's coming up. So I'm just putting it in now. So we are nearly all set then for this session to begin. 5 past the hour is when the broadcast is going to be underway. That's another 30 or so seconds, according to my watch at least, as you can hear the music in the background. So the link to the Formula E Zone is now in the YouTube chat. I urge you all to go and subscribe to that. A fantastic channel and a fantastic atmosphere as well, created by everybody who is at the broadcast. Okay, so the session is about to get underway here, and the beautiful thing actually about having Monaco and Jakarta back to back is they've got exactly the same flag. We don't have to change anything in the commentary box. All we've had to do is change the image in the background. Everything else is just exactly the same for Monaco. So thumbs up there for a quick edit. I'll obviously change the name to Jakarta at the top here. Have I spelled that right? J-A-C-A, Jakarta. Jakarta. Yeah, just checking I've spelt that right, which is always important to do. Anyway, it's 5 to the hour, which means we're going to hear from the ABB FIA Formula E team shortly, which means I hope Ben Edwards is going to be there, because come on, we all want to hear Ben. He's a fantastic commentator. And here we go. So we've got about 30 seconds to go then until the start of the broadcast. And I believe, I'm just double checking on Instagram as well, because keep checking, is Karun alongside Ben Edwards? Because Ben wasn't there yesterday in the Formula, in FP1. That was Saunders doing the commentary as well, who now should be in the pit lane for this session. So the fingers will be crossed. Everything's looking forward to it. 7 races to go in the ABB FIA Formula E Championship. Session underway in around about 5 minutes' time, which means we could have had an extra 10 minutes in bed. So, thumbs up. Anyway, here's Ben Edwards.
For the second time, Formula E is in Jakarta in Indonesia, and we're all set for the second free practice session of the current fascinating championship battle. Welcome from me, Ben Edwards, in the commentary box, along with racer and motorsport aficionado Karun Chandhok, as one of the biggest cities in the world hosts rounds 10 and 11 of the 2023 ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. It is a spectacular place, the capital city of Indonesia, the largest of the nation. On the northwest coast of Java, and Java the world's most populous island. Many people around. It is the economic, cultural and political centre of Indonesia, and there's going to be plenty of people beside the track, no doubt, absorbing some of the atmosphere of an event that is building up nicely in terms of the championship. Some great battles that we've seen already this year. The last event taking place in Monaco, and it meant that we now have a new championship leader in Nick Cassidy, because he has taken 2 wins in a row in the last 2 events, the second race in Berlin and then in Monaco last time out. That means that Nick Cassidy has now taken the championship lead from Pascal Wehrlein, who's also taken 2 victories in the 2023 calendar. So the calendar now sees 2 more races here in Jakarta, rounds 10 and 11, with round 12 in Portland, and then to Rome and London to complete that calendar. So much to look forward to. We've got new drivers taking part too. David Beckman's coming in for his first Formula E race, although he's been a sim driver for a while. Roberto Meri is also taking part this weekend for Mahindra. Then we've got the experienced championship contenders, Jake Dennis, big smile on his face as he's hoping to get back up to podium again, as he did in Monaco in fact. Pascal Wehrlein, a double winner, was the championship leader in the early part of the year, but Nick Cassidy is now the man leading the title battle. Can he maintain that? That's going to be a big question. Wonderful view over the track there as we look at the points in the championship. Nick Cassidy with a 20-point lead over Pascal Wehrlein. Jake Dennis in that 3rd place for Avalanche Andretti. Mitch Evans, though, the other New Zealander, and it's been New Zealand wins between Mitch Evans and Nick Cassidy at the last 4 races. Mitch is very much a part of it too in 4th place. So is Jean-Eric Verne in 5th position. Reigning champion Stoffel van Dorn's had a more tough time. He's down in 11th place. Other champions like Lucas Di Grassi struggling a bit too, down in 15th place at the moment. So that is an overview of the track itself, but what we're looking at here is the championship positions for the teams. Envision with Nick Cassidy and Sebastian Buemi. They are leading the championship over Tag Heuer Porsche, Jaguar in third place, and then Avalanche Andretti. So it's the two Jag power teams, the two Porsche power teams that are doing so well in the series right now. So here's a look at the track. Karun, talk us through what we can be getting ready for here.
18 corners take the drivers around this amazing circuit that's been created completely for the Formula E World Championship here. Start finish straight heads you down towards a tight right-hand corner. There will be a bit of a funneling effect when we get to the race. It winds itself around the monument as we get through this sort of section of the middle part of the track, but the drivers don't really get a chance to relax. They're constantly going from one corner into the other. The attack mode activation comes around the outside of turn 16, a left-hander, before you come around the final right corner, back up to the start-finish line.
And the green light is about to go on here in Jakarta for the second practice session to get underway. Track temperature 31 degrees, air temperature is at 30 degrees with a 66% humidity as well. Probability of rain is at 2%. So this is looking absolutely fantastic as we look forward to it. Green light at the end of the pit lane and away we go. Another 30 minutes of practice then is underway. There's our championship leader Nick Cassidy watching along as well in the Envision, heading out onto the circuit. Coming into the championship then, David Beckman making his debut in the series, coming into it, and now also we've also got to keep an eye out as well as Beckman is in for Lotterer, and of course replacing Oliver Rowland is going to be the one and only coming into it as well for Roberto Merry. But here is Ben Edwards. It's on the cars heading on the track with Karun. I'll chime in with something good.
It's got to do their part, but when it comes to affecting the end result, having a good working relationship with your engineer, between a driver and engineer, is one of the most pivotal parts of that entire team.
Lucas Di Grassi, we're just seeing, and Roberto Merry. Roberto Merry is just the first of the two Mahindra cars here, so they're going out together, and it is a debut in Formula E for Roberto Merry. And he's an experienced driver, though. I remember commentating on him when he raced in Formula 1. He didn't do a lot of Formula 1, and actually, when he got into Formula 1, it was quite early in his career in some ways. He was with the Marussia team in 2015. He did 13 Grand Prix for them. In recent years, he's been doing some more Formula 2, but now he's getting into Formula E. A lot to learn this weekend. Let's listen in.
Brake warm up and warm your fronts. Keep looking at the rears, but warm your fronts.
Engineer talking to the other driver who's making his debut this weekend, David Beckman. And Karun, David's actually done a lot of sim work in Formula E, so he's got the experience in the sim, but now he's got to get that experience in the car.
Yeah, that's right. You know, Roger Griffiths, the team boss at Andretti, had to make a decision because their regular driver, Andre Lotterer, is off to Le Mans and for the big 24-hour race coming up. Max Günther, so Maserati had a good day yesterday, Ben, didn't they? 1-2 in the free practice session. They're coming off the back of a pretty dreadful race in Monte Carlo, where they had both cars in the top 7 on the grid. For their home race, it came away with no points. So they, it's sort of been the story of their season in so many ways. They've often been quick, but when you actually look at the championship table, neither driver is near the sharp end.
No, you're absolutely right. It's been a bit of a tough time, but Eda Mortara, they're a championship contender in recent years, and so you know there's got to be a chance. Hopefully, James Rossiter, the racing team principal, keeping a close eye on things at the moment as the two cars are heading around together. Maybe, oh, and he actually hits the wall. He actually touches the wall with both right-hand wheels early on. You can see there's still a lot of dust around, isn't there?
It's very
Mortara then touching the wall twice, just getting a massive whack into it. And he's come straight to the pit lane, actually, abandoning the lap time. So Mortara, the first one to touch the wall after FP1 was pretty uneventful. Mortara certainly got it in FP2. Let's take a look at it once again then. So he swings it in, and he's actually caught the barrel on the entrance as well, coming into turn 16. And he catches it again at the exit. So it's into 15, he starts going wide, touches the wall, scrapes it coming into 16, and he's actually bent the wheel as well. He's actually broken the wheel tubs. That's one set of tyres already gone, and dust then for Eda Mortara, sadly. Bird, Gunther, Boemi to the camera, Cassidy, Ticktum, Van Dorn now goes top, Vern goes top as well, so they're finding the times quite quick. DS Penske 1-2 as well in their 100th start in Formula E.
The only other thing to think about is they only get 2 sets of tyres for the day. Now, if he's damaged that tyre, that's gone from his allocation, and that's going to complicate life for the rest of today.
Experienced driver, Eda Mortara, but easy to make mistakes. And that actually is one of the first mistakes we've seen this weekend. It was remarkably calm in first free practice yesterday. Very few people had any problems at all. Mortara, as we mentioned, was actually second fastest to his teammate. Early stages right now of FP2, and the 2 DS Penske's are topping the times, but we'll see a lot of changes to those times as we go through the rest of the session. Now, Mitch Evans here, of course, one of the major contenders for the championship, and a multiple race winner, double race winner already this year, and a lot of people thinking, well, he's really on the case now. He's 4th in the points, but he's still close. And in fact, if he, for example, was to take pole position...
I made a mistake last corner. Copy. That was just over a 10th and a half, sector 1.
If he was to take pole position and get the 3 points you get for pole, it would actually put him up into 3rd place in the championship. Of course, it's the race that's more important with the big numbers of points involved there. Meanwhile, Nissan out on track as well. This is Norman Nato. They've had a mixed time. They've had some good qualifying sessions, not always getting the top race results that they want.
Yeah, they seem to have a good car over 1 lap. You know, they're able to unlock performance. If you look back to Monaco, you know, between the McLaren and the Nissan powertrains, they had a very, very strong qualifying. But they still collectively haven't got the efficiency, it seems, when it comes to the races. You know, they sort of drop back. As you said, you know, as a team, I think back to Fenestra's strong pole in Cape Town as well. And when you go even earlier, races like India, even though he was very competitive on the grid, but can't quite convert it when it matters in the race. This is Jean-Eric Verne slipping and sliding his way around as the dust starts to clear. So we're going to see a lot of evolution, Ben, throughout the session. You know, I think certainly the quickest times will come towards the end. And the drivers have just got to be mindful of that. You know, it's very easy when the track's so slippery to get caught out, and as we saw Mortara doing, they've got to make sure they've got A, the car to be in the session towards the end, but B, you know, not get too spooked with the early conditions here and start changing the setup, because if you start doing that, then actually when the dust clears off, you might be in the wrong setup window.
That was a good lap by Verne. He has just set the fastest lap, not quite as quick as we saw in FP1 yesterday, but that has put him to the top with the fastest in Sector 1 and Sector 3 as well, the final sector. So Mortara actually having to get out of the car, and maybe there is work. Well, we saw the damage on the wheel. They clearly had to change wheels, but maybe there's a bit more analysis that has to be done, check up. So whether he's going to get back out in this session, we've still got a bit of time, over 20 minutes to go. Hopefully they will get him back out, because getting that running in, getting those extra laps in, so important before we get into group qualifying, where you're right on the keys straight away, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. So it's never a good sign when the driver's helmet comes off, because that means it's going to be a few minutes before they get him back in at least. So Neo, they've got a very, I'm trying to choose the right word here, very energetic driver lineup when it comes to qualifying. These two drivers, both Sergio Settecamera we're watching here and Dan Ticktum, very exciting to watch when it comes to qualifying in particular. They do like throwing the car around, and you know, they've done some, you know, we talked about the Nissan drivers earlier, but these guys as well done some good qualifying so far this season. Another team who haven't quite got the efficiency in the races, but the drivers are, you know, really throwing the car around, trying to extract the best they can. Settecamera a bit wide there. Interesting to see compared to Verne's line, wasn't it? You know, Jev used a tighter line there, and sort of avoided the dust, which might be the smarter thing to do.
The track has been resurfaced, I gather, from last year, from when it was the first time that Formula E came here. You see still some bumps. I know they've got rid of they got rid of some of the bumps. I think there were some key bumps around turn 7, 8, but you can see it is still a little bumpy in places, can't you?
Yeah, so, I mean, essentially what they've done here is reclaim the land. All of this was a swamp,
Yeah.
which is what it's hard to believe when you look at the grandstands and all the stuff around. This was all swampland a few years ago, and they spent an awful lot of time and effort trying to reclaim all the land, get a solid base underneath, and then plonk the circuit on top, which is a massive commitment to an event like this.
It is, absolutely. That's a quick look into turn one and into the Neo 333 team here. Dan Ticktum, part of that team, as you mentioned. His best qualifying so far this year, or best grid position, has been 4th on the grid, and his best finish 6th. Whereas man we were just watching, Sergio Sette Camera, he has had a 5th place. That was in Hyderabad, but he's had 8 times failing to score any points in the races this year, so yeah, not all gone well. René Rast we're looking at now. So experienced driver once again, the German. He's 10th in the championship at the moment on 40 points. He's had 1 podium so far this year, best finished of 3rd place. There's the team principal, Ian James. This team that was set up for this year runs with the Nissan power. There we are, seeing pits now as well. And yeah, it's been working pretty well again, as we said, in qualifying. Doesn't always have quite the energy duration during the races that they would like, but that's something that all the teams are trying to improve. They haven't been allowed to do a lot of testing, but there's been a lot of software work still going on. So we've had a little gap since Monaco. We might see some changes coming up this weekend, but it is complicated by the additional heat as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the fact that we got 2 races this weekend is going to be beneficial for the teams who haven't had a chance to do much testing in between the last race and this one, because they learned some lessons. As we see Nick Cassidy testing the attack mode around the outside. That's important to do for 2 reasons. One, for the driver to understand what the grip is like around that wide part of the circuit, which they don't traditionally use. And secondly, for the team to understand how much time is lost by using that wider line.
Wonderful onboard view from underneath Nick Cassidy's car. This is a camera position we're enjoying in Formula E this year, and you can sort of see from a very different perspective. The surface gives us an idea of how bumpy it is. It's not looking overly bumpy. Obviously there is a bit of movement going on, and we'll just have to see how it goes.
Under-consuming.
Sylvain Philippi, who hasn't been feeling too well this weekend. Good to see that he is in there, keeping an eye on everything, but I know he's been feeling a little bit poorly this weekend. Let's hope things go well from the team point of view. Of course, it is going well for Envision. They are leading the team's championship and the drivers' championship with Nick Cassidy at the moment.
And they're having a very strong run. I mean, at the start of the year, all the indications seem to be that the Porsche powertrains were going to be the ones to beat. As the seasons unfolded, the Jaguar powertrain teams, both Envision and the Works team, have sort of come to the fore, I think, and Cassidy in particular, Ben. I mean, 5 podiums in the last 6 races, and it's incredible run of form.
Yeah, he's doing a good job, isn't he? René Rast just about to complete a lap. Max Günther is fastest at the moment, on a 1:09.309. Verne just a 1/10 of a second slower than him. Rast currently 12th. Let's just see what Roberto Meri's been up to here. Going down into turn 1, big lock-up. Right front, managed to keep it all together.
Now that's very interesting, because Roberto Meri did exactly the same lock-up yesterday in practice number 1 as well. The same corner, locked the front brake, went straight on as well. Just getting a bit wide through turns 2 and 3, just to double check that the car was okay, which is nice to see. But yeah, let's go run through the times then. Verne is top, with Dennis now second. And Evans now top. Well, never mind. Try and run through the times, and they all change for you as well. And they are changing massively. We've got a new set time for Sasha Fennestraus, fastest first sector of anyone. So he too is changing the lap time as well. So it's Evans, Verne, Dennis, Gunther, Nato, Buemi, Da Costa, Bird, Beckman, and now Van Dorn goes 6th to spoil the fun, after he was 10th position as well, changing it all. And Fennestraus now goes P2. So the times are changing quite quickly as the track continues to evolve here in Jakarta.
Just been regeneration from the power unit. These Gen 3 cars have a power unit in the front and another at the back. The one at the front is the one that regenerates power from the braking. You've got drive shafts on those front wheels now. It's also increased the steering weight, I gather, too, so the driver's working quite hard on the steering.
Yeah, it is a bit heavier, certainly, because you got torque coming through the front axle. So I had a chance to go in one of the Gen 3 cars back in Hyderabad a few months ago, and that was you could definitely make out how much heavier it is.
So Roberto Meri comes over the line, and he's still struggling a little bit, 1 minute 10.8. But of course, at least he's getting some lap times in, whereas Eda Motara, who had that little contact with the wall, he's still in the pits at the moment, and I wonder whether he's going to be back out at all in this event. Nico Muller, we're looking at now in the ABB Cupra. That's a team that has struggled, except for, of course, their wonderful qualifying in the wet in Berlin, where they ended up on the front row together, which was remarkable. And actually, Nico did a good job in that race, even though it was a dry race, he was able to come home in 9th place. That's been his best finish of the year, but I think that's his only points, in fact, of the year. So it has been a tough time for the ABB Cupra team. Meanwhile, Jake Dennis here, on a decent lap by the looks of things. He is certainly one of the main contenders that we're going to be watching this weekend.
Yeah, Sebastian Buemi on a strong lap as well. He's, we've seen him already on pole position twice this year, I think, and he's certainly been on much better form than he has been last season, where he really didn't enjoy his time in Formula E, but he's come back strong this year. Jake Dennis, as you say, Ben, 5th at the moment, but he's on a better lap. There's faster improvement times coming up and down the field. Buemi goes 2nd at the moment. We see Sam Bird on a good lap as well, but here comes Jake Dennis out of the final corner, up towards the line, and goes to the top of the times.
108.9, so we're back down to the sort of times we saw in FP1 now. 108.946 was Max Günther yesterday, and now we're seeing very similar sort of times, 108.936. So Sam Bird with the Jaguar, both Jaguars obviously very, very competitive. Mitch Evans 2nd, or he's just been pushed down to 3rd. Mitch Evans in the other Jaguar, he's been pushed down by Max Günther. Let's just see what Sam does. So Sam Bird goes 5th fastest for the moment. So both Jaguars are well up in the order, not right at the very top. Jake Dennis has that margin by just a tiny amount. There's James Barkley, boss of the Jaguar TCS racing team, and with Jaguar powering these two machines and the two Envisions, they're in a good form. Will we see Jaguar powertrains win the championship for the first time? It's certainly something that's looking very, very possible, but the battle with Porsche is continuing.
Yeah, Antonio Felix da Costa, he's just not yet fully settled in, has he? You know, he obviously was very comfortable with the Techeetah team that he was with before, won the championship with them, joined the Works Porsche team, and he's always, apart from that amazing win in Cape Town right at the end, he's always seemed just sort of a step behind Pascal Wehrlein when it comes to pace, and he's not fully out of touch when it comes to the championship, but he'll need a stellar run of races towards the end of the season to secure that.
Watching Lucas Di Grassi at the moment, and part of the Mahindra team, it has been a struggle, there's no doubt. He had that excellent 3rd place in Mexico to start the season off, but that was a bit of an outliner, really. It's only been the 1-point score that he's had so far this year. Only twice has he got into the duels challenge of qualifying. And for Frédéric Bertrand, who has become the team boss of Mahindra this year, there is plenty to do. He's actually been over to India to speak to the Mahindra bosses and say, look, you know, this is what we need to do, this is how we can step forward. They're putting a lot of work in at the moment. They know they're just not that competitive at this stage, especially in race trim, but we'll have to see how it gets on. Meanwhile, some drivers now just trying to find a little bit of space. We might see some drivers now beginning to put together some sort of full attack laps coming up. We'll have to wait and see. At the moment, it is still Jake Dennis who is fastest, Max Günther 2nd, and then Mitch Evans currently 3rd fastest. Sergio Sette Camera, let's see how he's getting on with the Neo 333. Across the line, he's 10th fastest at this stage. Put in a decent lap, 109.2, and the lap times are certainly very, very close. We won't get the full idea, though, until we get into qualifying, will we?
Yeah, the track's cleaning up all the time. This is Sam Burr down into the first corner. He won't be very happy. Yeah, he won't be particularly happy with that. Andretti being bang on the line. This was Di Grassi. We get up to here, so Sam seemed to do the same to him. Yeah, pull around. But there's not much room for Sam to get out of the way there, really. So I think that was okay. This is René Rast in the pits, so it might be coming in just do some tire pressure changes, Ben, because as the drivers are doing more and more laps, you know, and the track temperature is getting hotter and hotter, as you said, 33 degrees outside, but as the sun's beating down, that track temperature is going to be well up into the high 40s, maybe even low 50s when we get to the race.
Very true. And tyre pressures, of course, there are quite strict rules on those as well, as we saw this team getting shot to the back down at Monaco because their tyre pressures weren't completely correct. So Verne and Van Dorn had to start from the very back of the grid in Monaco, didn't they? So you've got to get all this stuff planned and sorted in your pre-practice sessions.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, that was a lost opportunity for that team. They managed to get both cars from the back of the grid into the points, which just tells how much potential they actually had if they'd been able to start, you know, further up. So, yeah, getting the car completely right from a legality standpoint is it's just a default, isn't it? You've got no argument there. Costa, though, he is on a very, very strong lap there, bang on the pace, 2/10 up in the first sector straight away as he comes through this middle part of the lap, as I was saying, through 9, 10 and 11, the right-hander here, and the car, you can see just moving around, dancing around. There's definitely less dust now than there was earlier on this session when we got going, about 20 minutes ago. So the lap time's coming thick and fast.
Portuguese driver Antonio Felix da Costa, a real star in former champion in Formula E, but the last few races have not really quite gone to plan. He was only 15th in Monaco, 5th in the second of the Berlin races. His victory, the one victory he's had this year, that came in Cape Town. It was a fantastic victory too, some good passing moves, but he needs to sort of get it back together. But he has gone fastest, a 108.8, so that's the fastest we've seen. Jean-Eric Vergne has some sort of problem, some sort of issue with the car, and you can see from the body language that things are not quite right.
It seems like something in the cockpit with the steering, the mechanics look in the steering wheel. He's got out of the car. There's a lot of looking in the cockpit rather than the suspension or the steering system itself. So I wonder if he's got an actual issue, you know, somewhere where the steering column mounts or the steering wheel itself.
David Beckman once more. He's now the youngest driver in the championship, taking over from Sacha Fenestres, who has been the youngest up to now, but now we've got a new rookie in David Beckman at 23 years old. He's the 80th driver to race in Formula E. Well, we've got 80th and 81st now because we've got 2 new drivers this weekend coming into the event, but he is the youngest on the grid. He's raced in Formula 4, in GP3, taking victories in 2018. The FIA Formula 3 Championship. He's done a couple of years of Formula 2 with some podiums. And then earlier this year, actually, David Beckman, a very different style of driving. He won the LMP2 class at Sebring. So now he's getting very used to the Formula E. Let's go on board with Dan Tincton. Karim, just talk us around the lap and how it feels from the driver point of view.
Yep, as he comes through turns 2 and 3 here, and the track just starting to open up now. There's a pretty tight section there through 2 and 3, and then you start to unleash a bit of power. It's quite bumpy here. Watch his hands of the car bouncing around. You can hear it as well underneath in that braking zone 4-7. Big slide, classic Dan Tincton there. He's not afraid of having the car sideways at all sorts of angles and relies on his car control to sort it out. But yeah, he's got plenty of ability and confidence, that's for sure. Turn 13, slightly wide of the apex there, the hairpin. That's not so much of a problem. He carried a bit more momentum. I think he might have just backed off here, Ben, because he's looking in his mirrors to make a gap. There was a car ahead of him, and I think he was a bit concerned about getting boxed up there. So, yep, he has abandoned and is coming into the pit. So we won't get to see a full lap on this occasion, but we saw plenty of drifting there
Yeah,
from Dan Tickton.
As you said, it's fun watching Dan Tickton because he has that style of driving and he goes on attack mode nearly all the time. Sometimes it doesn't quite work, sometimes it's over attack mode a bit too much. Let's just see what Sam Bird does. Yes, he goes fastest. Good lap, fastest in all, second and third sectors. And he has taken the fastest lap time of 108.478. That's the fastest we've seen all weekend so far, and actually it's faster than last year's pole position as well. So we're getting a bit more representation now, I think, of the sort of lap times. The track is cleaning up, although we have still seen a bit of dust around. So as we go into qualifying later, I'm sure the lap times will further improve. First stage of qualifying, they'll run to the 300 kilowatt mark and then into the joules, of course. They get more power to play with as well, don't they?
Yeah, exactly that. So here's Sam Bird's teammate, Mitch Evans. He's a bit down, actually, quarter of a second down on Sam's time. So winner of the race here in Jakarta, of course, last year, and very much a title contender. Max Günther, very quick yesterday, fastest of anybody in yesterday's practice session, and he's slightly ahead of Sam Bird's time in the first two sectors. Evans comes up towards the line and he will end up in 5th, but watch Günther because he's coming up now and does go ahead of Sam Bird. Very strong last sector for Max Günther, nearly 10th and a half now ahead of Sam Bird.
It's impressive, as you say, and it backs up what he did yesterday. So Max Günther's on good form here at the moment. Stoffel Van Dorn is into the pits. It's teammate John-Eric Verne, who we know has some sort of a problem with the car, but Stoffel Van Dorn looks as though he's going to be maybe sent back out on track. Let's wait and see whether that's going to happen. Meanwhile, Sebastian Buemi in the other Envision. Buemi currently down in 9th place. Not on a particularly quick lap at the moment.
Loads of understeer in that car. He's really chasing the front end. You could see having to wait and wait to pick the power up. So yeah, I think he'll be not particularly happy with the balance of that car. And with 5 minutes to go in this session, or less than 5 minutes to go, this is the point where you've really got to be thinking about what do you do for qualifying. You know, are you happy with the car as it is, or do you need to make changes in the next couple of hours before we go to qualifying?
Yeah, and you're into a sequence now where it all ramps up pretty quickly, doesn't it? There's not a huge amount of time to turn things around. You've got to start thinking ahead, as you say, towards qualifying. There's Jake Dennis. So he was fastest earlier on in this session. He's now down in 3rd place, but he's still very much in the mix up there near the top. Günther from Sam Bird, from Jake Dennis, and then Antonio Felix da Costa is in 4th place. Sasha Fenestres is in 5th place. Mitch Evans now being pushed down to 6th. Stoffel Van Dorn, who we saw in the pits a moment ago, currently in 7th place. Norman Nato 8th. Sebastian Buemi 9th. And top 10, Lucas Di Grassi. Actually, that's quite interesting. He's still up there.
Sector 2 and Sector 3, so you should be clear by the...
Jaguars, meanwhile, being kicked back into the pits. Are they going to be doing much more? Tyre change, perhaps. They will be presumably doing some more practice starts again at the end of this practice session.
Yeah, and that's important to do as well, you know, because the track, the grip level and the amount of dust on the track would have changed between yesterday and today, so they have got to do that practice start. But tell you what though, Pascal Wehrlein will be a bit worried, wouldn't he? You know, down in 18th, it's an okay first sector. It is an improvement, but you know, that's not what you want to see on the lap times as you head in qualifying. He's a bit of an outlier actually, as well as McLaren so far. You know, they 15th and 19th for Aston Hughes. It's not where we'd expect to see them.
No, I think that's a really good point about Pascal Wehrlein, because he had such a strong start to the season. It does feel to me there's been this little gap since Monaco to this race. Now it all ramps up again over the next few weeks, going into the last few events of Formula E. He's got to get it together in a way here in Jakarta in these 2 races. These are critical races. If he's going to keep the pressure on Cassidy in the championship, they've got to start getting those results back together. And at the moment, Pascal Wehrlein, well, he's 6th, but you know, they really want to be finding a bit more pace, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's on the back foot a bit, isn't he? Because he'd gone from that brilliant start that you mentioned to being pretty comprehensively outscored, especially the last 6 races by Cassidy, and you know, that he relinquished the championship lead, and he made that error in Cape Town, pretty uncharacteristic error, it has to be said, where he crashed into this guy, Sebastian Buemi, and it's just the sort of wheels that started to fall off the wagon a little bit, hasn't it? And he's just got to get that back on track.
Yeah, and we've seen him in the past, you know, he usually keeps it all together, but it hasn't quite worked yet. Jake Dennis, and he's doing well, and another driver who's been through a bit of a poor patch, but it feels to me as though he has picked back up. Monaco was a good event for him, so although he had previous to that had a bit of a tough time with a very strong start to the season, the first race winner of this current season in Mexico. But he is putting together a good season, and let's keep a close eye on him. He's currently third fastest at the moment, and he's doing a personal best, so this could see him go, yep, it goes second fastest now to Max Günther, the gap 0.117.
Yeah, Jake's been a bit unlucky as well, hasn't he? He got taken out in a couple of races, completely not his fault, but they cost a whole heap of points. And, you know, in some ways, he put himself into those positions, I feel. As Edo Mortara did, you know, he firmly put himself in the position of sitting and watching on TV rather than driving around after clouting the barrier.
It's disappointing, they haven't got him back out, so there must be damage to the car that we didn't quite see, because I thought they might get him back out with a different set of wheels on, but nope, there's clearly more work. So poor Mortara, well, I say poor, it was his mistake, and he hasn't got any laps in FP2, which is a bit of a hurt.
I mean, they're bookending the field at the moment, aren't they? With Günther at the top of the times, and Mortara with no laps on the board. So at least the team will have some good data and be able to show Edo Mortara just what the potential of that car is.
Checker flag is coming out in 5 seconds' time to bring out the end of this rather uneventful free practice 2. We'll get some practice starts as well. Checker flag is out. Free practice 2 has now concluded at 40 minutes past the hour. It's 8:40 in the morning over there in Jakarta. It's 2:40 a.m. here in the UK with myself, Ben Edwards and Karun Chanakal commentating from. Karun and Ben from the Channel 4 studios. Myself from Grimsby as well. So it's a long morning here. Günther looks like he's topped both sessions then as well after dominating free practice 1. Practice 2 looks to be going his way, which is going to be another amazing job for the Maserati drivers. Anyone else improving? Dennis gone second. Rene Rast just twitching the rear of the car. Continuing on. And drifting around the back half of the circuit. Into the last corner, turn 18. Tight inside line. Pushes hard. Drifts it a little bit wide. And across the line for Rene Rast. 15th to 15th. Doesn't improve. Everyone's taking the flag. Only one left is Bird and Günther. Günther takes the flag. Bird coming across. Evans across the line. Goes 6th from 8th. And Bird stays in 3rd place. That's the end then of the second practice session. Yellow flags briefly on the circuit at turn 17. Presumably to let everyone know that there's going to be a warm-up lap as well. So let's go back to Ben and Karun. And is it Cassidy? Cassidy at turn 17. Oh, he spun it. Cassidy lost the rear of the car on a 360 and has to loop it back around again. So that was a bit unusual there from our championship leader. Back to Ben and Karun, and we're about to round out the results.
The racing line and got in the dust at that point, but no major harm to here. As we'll see, he's completely struggling for rear end grip. Way before the apex, into turn 1. Way before the apex, the rear of the car was starting to come around on him, and as soon as he made a bit more of an attempt to make the corner, it just came around completely.
So team boss Sylvain Felipe will have looked at that, but to go off there is not a bad place. That turn 1 has a decent runoff area. If you're going to experiment, if you're going to try something and you're not sure it's going to work, that probably is the place to do it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Into the...
Okay, so main corner to focus, turn 7. Yeah, 10 to front lock all the way.
Bit of information from Max Günther, who's set the pace here in both practice sessions, so that's pretty good. He's taken fastest time in both free practice 1 and now free practice 2, whereas his teammate Edo Mortara is having work done. So it looks as though there's possibly front suspension damage as a result of the contact that he made with the wall. Certainly taking things apart there. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we had a look at the rear earlier, didn't we? That broken rim, but we didn't get a chance to have a proper look at the front, and clearly the team have found something that is not right. So yeah, that's not good for them.
Practice starts taking place now as well, and that will be crucial later on today when we get into round 10 of the Formula E Championship, lighting up those rears and getting off the line well and into turn 1, whereas we can see from that little incident from Nick Cassidy a moment ago, there is plenty of space.
Yeah, maybe we don't do the last practice attack if it's too dirty offline. Yes, we don't do.
Dirty offline, I think, is an interesting point there, because you can still see the dust, even on the grid, as they're doing these practice starts. Offline, it's dusty. You don't want to be on the inside line, particularly. You want to be on the outside line at the start of the race, don't you?
Yeah, but I find that radio message slightly confusing, because he's saying he doesn't want to do the attack mode practice on this in-lap if it's dusty offline, but it's not going to clear up if nobody goes there. So it probably is worth practicing what it's like when you go on that dusty part of the track.
Yeah, good point. On board with Sam Bird. Let's just see what the practice start is like for Sam. Very experienced Formula E racer, of course.
There we go. You see the launch mode on the steering wheel activated there. And that's pretty good drive.
It is massive acceleration from these, isn't it?
Yeah, four-wheel drive, of course, these days. So even on a dusty surface, you've got power being put to the ground through both axles, which is very helpful off the line.
So there we go. Practice starts being done, but FP2 is done and dusted. Quite dusty in many ways. But it's Max Günther who has set the pace, and I think he will be very happy with the way it has gone here today. So Max Günther fastest by 0.117 of a second over Jake Dennis and Sam Bird. And we've got a real mix of teams up in there. Maserati, Avalanche Andretti, Jaguar and Tag Heuer Porsche with Pascal Wehrlein ahead of Stoffel van Dorn and then Mitch Evans. Antonio Felix da Costa in 7th ahead of Sascha Fenestrez, Nico Muller, that's a good effort by him, and Dan Ticktum, who was 10th fastest. Outside the top 10, we have Norman Nato, who was 11th fastest, ahead of Sebastian Buemi and Nick Cassidy. So that was a little bit interesting that both Envision cars are outside the top 10. That wasn't quite what we were expecting. Jean-Eric Vergne had some sort of little bit issue. David Beckman making his debut this weekend, 17th fastest. And the other driver making his debut, Roberto Meri, ended up 21st, but poor Eder Mortara didn't get a lap in at all after making contact with the wall.
So that is the end of this practice session then here for the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. We will be back at 4:30 UK time for all of the action here from qualifying. Do join us for that here on YouTube. For now though, go get a few hours sleep. Josh T is doing exactly the same thing. We'll see you for qualifying in a few hours. Bye bye.